Corbett Thompson here for the King James Radio Network at jamesisking.com. This is exclusively on our YouTube page. And so this is the first Mets rant that I've done this year because I've held off. Okay, I held off for 53 games. You know, the Mets were 26 and 27, and that's where they're at now. And so I've held off on doing Mets rants until now because I've seen enough, to be honest. And you know, as the Mets head out they're out in LA currently as we speak, facing the Dodgers. And it's easy to do a Mets rant pretty much anytime, but it's easy to do a Mets rant when you blow a 3-run lead in the ninth inning and you blow a 5-run lead in the game, as the Mets did last night. You know, had an 8-3 lead and just blew it. You know, in death by 1,000 cuts. Robert Gazelman gives up a run, Jeurys Familia gives up a run, and then to cap it all off, your closer, Edwin Diaz. The thing that got me about Diaz is this, and I want to get to Mickey Callaway in a minute, but the thing that got me about Diaz is this. He gave up 3 runs without recording a single out. The object of the game, of course, the object of the ninth inning is to get 3 outs before the other team gets 3 runs. That was the goal last night. Or early this morning at like 1:30 in the morning if you were up. But that's the goal. And so what happens? The Dodgers scored 3 runs, and Diaz doesn't get a single out in the process. And then, of course, you know what happened from there. You know, he ends up losing the game on a sacrifice fly. Now, I could talk about how the Mets, you know, should do a little bit better job of reading their scouting reports and not pitching into Cody Bellinger. I could talk about that. I could talk about Muncy. I could talk about Justin Turner and how Justin Turner swings for the fences on every pitch, and the Mets should pitch him that way. You go upstairs on a guy like that swings for the fences on every pitch. We could talk about that, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. We could talk about, you know, Ahmed Rosario forgetting where second base is. We could talk about that, but no. We could talk about a number of things, but the thing that gets me is Mickey Callaway's, and a lot of people do not like Mickey Callaway. They don't like, you know, him as a manager, and I understand that. But the thing that gets me the most is he has no clue on how to handle his bullpen. None. Zero. No clue on how to handle his bullpen. Especially Diaz. Especially the use of Diaz. You look at the fact that you got him in the game in a non-safe. You guys were, you know, the Mets were up by 4 runs in the game before, and he brings Diaz in instead of Hector Santiago in a non-safe situation. And so, of course, what happens the next night when you actually need Diaz? Boom. Now, listen, I'm not saying that when to bring in your closer is an exact science. So I'm not saying that. But the fact of the matter is, you know, you got to be able to, especially Mickey Callaway being the pitching guru that he is, you got to be able to gauge, you know, when you need your closer and when you don't. You have to be able to do a better job of that. Mickey hasn't done that at all this year. He's mismanaged his whole bullpen, but primarily Diaz and Jeurys Familia. I understand Familia hasn't been good, but pitching him 3 days in a row right before he got hurt, that doesn't help. That doesn't help your cause. So that's a problem. And I think that's specifically why he got hurt. You know, if you remember, he went on the IL after pitching 3 straight days a couple of weeks back. And I blame that squarely on Mickey. So to be the pitching guru that he is, he doesn't seem to know how to handle a bullpen. You know, and I understand Brody Van Wagenen is not exactly giving him, you know, the nasty boys of the 1990, Cincinnati Reds. I get that. This isn't Rob Dibble, Randy Myers, and Norm Charlton. I get that. But with that being said, I understand Brody hasn't given him a lot to work with, but what he does have to work with, Mickey has not exactly done the best with. So how can you have confidence in him or Dave Island going forward? And Jim Riggleman, see, here's the thing, and this is why I don't want Jim Riggleman running this team if Mickey does get fired, okay? Because somebody should be telling Mickey, hello, here's what's going on. Listen, I don't sit there and pretend to be in the dugout to hear what Riggleman is saying to Mickey, but there's been too many of, then this is one of the reasons why they're 26 and 27. There's too many of these head-scratching moments with this team to where Riggleman, as the all-knowing bench coach, probably could have put a stop to it and didn't. So and you can't make it up. So that being said, if you want to fire Mickey, that's fine with me. The problem is I don't want Riggleman running this team, and I don't see, unless you're telling me that, Earl Weaver or somebody in his prime, somebody, or Upinella, somebody that's willing to throw some chairs around is going to come in and fix things, then, and don't give me Wally Backman because he's not coming. So unless you're telling me that you're going to have some miracle worker come in here, I don't see what the difference is going to be. So you might as well just let Mickey, finish out the year because, there isn't a whole lot. You think Joe Girardi's coming out of retirement or whatever he's in, doing TV or whatever he's doing? You think he's coming out to run this team? You think Joe Girardi wants to run this team? You know how much money you'd have to pay Joe Girardi to come in here and run this hot mess that you have right now? With the underperforming bullpen, with the inconsistent role players, and I'm not even talking about Robinson Cano, just the inconsistent role players. Look at the kind of year that Todd Frazier has had. He's hit lately, but, up until then, Carlos Gomez, I was actually ready to, send Gomez to the retirement home, but he's actually, every time I'm ready to cast off Gomez, he actually shows you something. Danny Echeverria, nice pickup thus far. Can't complain about Echeverria. And Rosario, as long as he hits 260, I'm good with that, but he's got to play defense. And there's these momentary times where, like last night in the ninth inning, where, your play is to first base, okay? If you're a major league shortstop, this is where your instincts kick in. Your instincts should tell you where you are in relativity to the second base bag. But that didn't happen. And so even if you just take one step off to the side and you can't feel the bag, your play is the first. But again, this isn't a lesson on baseball 101 here. So the point being is I could probably pick any time of the year to do a Mets rant. I could probably pick when they were 5 games under 500, and before we know it, they could be very well back to 5 games under 500 before this is all over, because they've still got tonight's game against Hyunjin Ryu and the Dodgers, and then they've got 3 in Arizona. So who knows? But that being said, this team's not winning the championship this year anyway, no matter what they do. I don't care if Yoenis Cespedes comes back tomorrow. They're not winning the championship this year, okay? Because the starting pitching has been very ordinary, and we know about the bullpen. So you got too many very ordinary players on this team to win a championship this year. So Mets fans, my suggestion to you is just to enjoy, it's kind of like when you take that roller coaster ride. You know that ultimately the roller coaster ride is going to come to a stop. You know that ultimately you're going to have to get off. It's just a matter of whether you enjoy the ride or whether you were ready to throw up the entire way. You decide. I won't tell you what to do there. You decide whether you want to enjoy the ride the entire way or if you want to throw up and then get off. So anyway, that's it for me. I'm not going to be too long. That's my Mets rant for today. And not sure when I'm going to do another one, but it'll probably be right after the Mets screw something up. But with that being said, thank you guys, and I will catch you guys later. Of course, the King James Radio Network, this is where I don't talk specifically about Mets rants, but we have our internet radio programming, a lot of the highlights in our high school baseball coverage that are on our page. We'll have our high school football highlights coming up in the fall, and some classic games that we've done in our North Brunswick Raiders coverage and different things like that. So you can check that out at your leisure on this page. All right. So with that, I will talk to you guys later. Be good, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.